Hello, my name is Kim Roman, and I am a graduate student at Liberty University, and this is my interpersonal communication project for my class, which is HSER 508. I want to start off by apologizing as I will be referring to my notes throughout the presentation. I just want to ensure that I present the information as accurately as possible, and also I need some help because I'm older and the memory is getting shorter and shorter. Throughout this course, I have shared very personal experiences. These experiences have shaped my view of communication. I learned good examples of listening skills and of how to incorporate them in my life. The following slides will reflect my journey. And during these slides, we will discuss my behavioral blends, my background, my defense mechanisms, and my overarching goal plan of action. Next slide, please. My overarching goal is to be a more effective communicator. And I believe that the foundation to this is starting with my relationship with God. I believe that if I have a very good relationship with God, then that relationship will translate into the relationships I have with others. But as such, I can also express and communicate with others, and through those experiences, also translate that into my relationship with God. So it's a win-win situation. I know that I must remember what my behavioral blend is in order to know how I think, how everything comes together for me as far as communication, so that I can help myself to be successful in my goal of communicating. And my behavioral blend is based on dominance, inducement, submission, and compliance theory, where the aforementioned personality traits or four quadrants are used to help better understand an individual's personality type. Next slide, please. Carbonell states, understanding the four-quadrant model of basic human behavior often explains why people do what they do. My behavioral blend is SC or CS, which defines my personality as one who partially thinks people expect me to be both submissive and competent. I am also defined as one who does not often jump into things or express my feelings openly, and I believe it has a lot to do, again, with my childhood and my defense mechanisms. Next slide, please. My background is one of many hurts and betrayals. I had a drug-addicted mother, an abandoned father, um, an abusive stepfather. I was molested. Was I lived in very impoverished state, and communication was not fostered in my house. I didn't understand and value the importance of it, and as such, I built defense mechanisms throughout my youth and throughout my young adult life, and even recently. Unfortunately, those ways of communicating weren't always effective, but a lot of it had to do with things that I incorporated because of the hurts and betrayals. I fostered an environment of or communication skills where it was very defensive climate. The following categories apply to me. I was defensive, controlling, I was very strategic, and once I identified something as truth, I was passionate about it to the core. Next slide, please. While providing guidelines for telling one's story, Stewart states, don't present your conclusions as truth. And this is something that I often did. It was a great defense mechanism. If I believed something was truth, I defended it to the core. I was passionate about it. I to the point where I would defend it, and I would even argue with people over stuff that was very silly or frivolous. Something that is a simple agreement would, to me, yield this passion that many people didn't understand, but it was a defense mechanism because in my youth I didn't have anyone to defend me or protect me. Next slide, please. I also adopted a method of using my words as a weapon. Where I wasn't defended as a child, I learned that I can manipulate the situation with my words, and I was great. What I couldn't do physically, the defending of myself that I couldn't do, I did in my words. And Stewart states hurtful messages are one of the ways people attempt to assert power, which is clearly what I did in my youth. Next slide, please. I also was very ineffective at practicing meta-communication. Actually, I didn't know what it is until this course. Basically, meta-communicating is talking about communicating. We set the ground rules of how we're going to proceed during the conversation and what we will and will not allow to occur during the conversation. Stewart states by meta-communicating during or before conflicts, the parties can agree about behaviors that will not be allowed. Next slide, please. Burley Allen states, evaluate and be critical of content, not the speaker's delivery. Well, I was very ineffective at this because I was so defensive that even when people were trying to communicate something that would help me, I instantly became defensive, I tuned them out, or I constantly wanted to have a rebuttal ready on standby because I was so defensive and I was so hurt. And this is the way that I felt was effective in protecting myself, but it was a very ineffective communicating aspect. Next slide, please. While watching the movie Fireproof, I noticed several examples of degenerative spirals occurring between the husband and the wife in the movie. Caleb, the husband, never disclosed what he wanted. He was not good at self-disclosing, and neither was Catherine. And so as a result, he was not receptive to what he was inhaling from her, and she was not effective with what she was exhaling to him as far as communication is concerned, and vice versa. Now that we've discussed my overarching goals, my behavioral blends, my background, and my defense mechanisms, let's discuss how I plan to reach my goals. Next slide, please. There are several things that I must incorporate. The first is, and what's most important to me, is I have to develop a strong personal relationship with God. I believe is the foundation of everything. And once I have that, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, I believe that it will make everything and every communication aspect and relationship much easier to maintain and obtain. Psalm 105:4 states, seek the Lord in his strength, seek his presence continually. I must also learn to guard my words and to breathe life into everyone I come across. Proverbs 18:20-21 states, for the fruit of man's mouth his stomach is satisfied. He is satisfied by the yield of his lips. I must also ask God to watch my words, to guard them, and to help everything that I do, as much as possible, bring him glory, because it's all about God. All about God. Psalms 141:3 says, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the doors of my lips. I must also ensure to pause and evaluate, not necessarily focus on the delivery of the message, but what words and the meaning behind the message is that's being communicated to me. Proverbs 15:28 states, a hot-tempered man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger quiets contention. Amen. I must also learn to identify the listening losses that I often experience. Peterson states, this happens when your talker is getting nowhere and you are at a complete loss about what to do. I will take his suggestion and ensure that I provide the person I'm communicating with an accurate recap of what they are expressing. That way, there is no confusion. James 1:19 states, know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And lastly, I remember that by the grace of God, I have overcome many trials and tribulations, as we all have. That I have the victory because of God, and I'm blessed to serve, and that I no longer have to express myself through hurt and anger, because he's delivered me from all of that. Deuteronomy 4:30-31 sums it up nicely. When thou art in tribulation, and all these things are come upon thee, even in the latter days, if thou turn to the Lord thy God, and shalt be obedient unto his voice, he will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers, which he sware unto them. I'm very thankful that I took this course, and I've learned so much, and I wish you continued blessings in all of your future endeavors. Thank you.